I'm Brandon.
And I'm Jesse.
We're Cannabis School. Having cannabis-infused conversations
with everyday people,
cannabis companies,
celebrities,
and your mom.
Welcome to the sesh.
Well, that's fine. I could put in effort or energy, but that is effort and energy. This took me zero effort and energy.
Exactly. Effort and energy. That's a great perspective.
Because, well, it's how often do people want to do the work versus like, nah, like it's work. But yet when we do the work, that's where change happens. That's where money, that's where everything happens is with the work. Going to the gym. That's where we see, it's in doing the work. But how many people want to do the work versus just talk about the work,
Because it's difficult, man.
Oh, it is.
It's a lot of ego shit that gets in the way. Man, I got to tell you, I'm doing a new training. It's level 1 through 12 shapes. And what's really cool is that in no way, shape, or form has she tried to tell us that we were wrong or that we need to think differently, but she will give you a different perspective. And dude, I fucking found a point of trauma in my life that went back to why I don't trust others. Fucking crazy, dude. I was 5. Kid wanted to ride. I had this bucket seat big wheel, and it was metal. Had a metal frame, had this cool, rubberized front wheel. My parents were poor.
Yeah.
And somebody gave this to us, brand new. The back
Those are
wheels were
expensive as hell.
Oh, fuck yeah, dude. It had one of those e-brake things.
Oh, yeah.
And it wasn't plastic by any means. But I was a nice little kid, and we were living in this Section 8 housing area. And this kid asked me if he could ride it. Sure. And he goes, you can ride mine. Because I trusted him, I got on this tricycle and I started pedaling. It didn't have a back wheel on the left side. And it fell over. I fell forward. Curb checked myself.
Oh, shit.
These 2 front teeth went this way. The other side ones went that way. So
Fuck.
I knocked all the teeth out. And the teeth sliced my lip open.
Oh, yeah.
And I come inside like this. Because blood was just pouring out. I mean, I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I covered my mouth. I'm not crying. I come inside and my mom is on the phone. She's got 70s curly hair. I swear to God, she's wearing a muumuu. She's probably going to kill me. No, she could have been wearing some pastel looking fucking pants and some old school 70s cowboy looking shirt where people used to wear all the time. Anyways, she's standing there on the phone. And what's the one thing you're told when you're a kid? Don't bother your parent when they're on the phone.
Yep.
Don't talk to me. I'm on the phone.
Leave me alone. I'm on the phone.
Trying to get my mom's attention. And she's, what? Splash.
Awesome.
My entire child mouth was full of blood. And it came out like that. My mom dropped the phone,
Yep.
picked me up, and took me to the sink. And from that day on, dude, I just didn't trust people.
Huh.
But I didn't know that until she took me through my first session. Fuck.
That's crazy.
And I was like, oh, and she goes, now you can let it go. And I'm like, and this guy, another coach, he's in Arizona. He started crying because he was working with him, and telling him, he's like, when I was a kid, I got tickets to the circus and I was so excited about him. And then I put him away, but I think my mom put him somewhere else. And, the day that the scout leader who gave me these tickets was like, okay, let's go, bring your tickets.
Yeah.
Couldn't find my tickets.
Didn't get to go.
And then this is what he said. He goes, I prayed. And you remember this thing, that the constant thing with Christians is believing that if I pray, it will become. And he prayed to find his tickets, and he didn't find his tickets.
Oh, yeah.
And you know what he did? He's like, right then and there, my relationship with God changed.
Yeah.
And you know what it reminded me of? Grandpa's story about the nickel.
Yep. Because it was like, oh, I prayed and I found it. And that changed his relationship with God. But 100%.
Right? And it was,
But see, I think that's why I never felt like I believed in it, because that's what my parents would tell me. Oh, you lost something, go pray for it. Okay, cool. Well, I did, and I searched for hours, and I prayed for it, and nothing changed. Nothing happened. Okay, well, that's like the same thing in my mind of realizing, well, that's like all these kids who get molested or abused or people who are raped and beaten, praying to God, help me, save me, and nothing happens. Because if God really were to come down and go, here's your keys, here's this thing you lost, here you're free, like everyone's prayers would be like changing
it would
reality.
Be Bruce Almighty. Remember
exactly.
that?
And that's why I don't believe in praying. But they've done studies on that too, and it's like it's great because it makes people feel better. But the science at the end of the day shows that it doesn't change what the outcome is.
I think it's something that's more philosophical than it is anything else.
100%.
And that's where I think it gets the lines
to make people feel better.
Well, it is. I mean, anything is, right?
Which is okay. Like,
Yeah,
it's okay
totally.
that it helps them feel better. But it's looking at it as like...
This is really good, by the way.
You know, but like, if you taught your kids, hey, if you lose something, you pray to God, and he'll help you find it. Versus like, you know, you're probably going to keep looking, and you're going to find it eventually, because you're going to go, what was the last place I did? Like, you're going to think about it, and eventually it's like, well, I've looked everywhere. Yeah, you've looked everywhere except where it was, obviously.
Hey, dude, the best line that I've ever heard about that was in the movie Pulp Fiction. And there's a scene where this guy comes out, shoots at John Travolta and Samuel L. Jackson, and he doesn't hit him once. Okay. And they look at themselves, and then they look at the guy, and he's got this giant .357 long barrel Magnum. Mm-hmm. And dude, those bullets would have ripped off
right
limbs.
Through them. Yep.
And they're like, and they kill him. But when they turn around, all of the bullets are right where they are.
Okay. Yeah.
So after that, Samuel L. Jackson's guy's like, God did that. And John Travolta's like, no, dude, it was a complete, it just happened. And he goes, no. He goes, that was divine intervention. And he goes, Jesus Christ. He goes, don't say that, man. And all of a sudden he's like, you can't curse, right? You can't say a word because that means something that can hurt and offend a creator or whatever. And so he says, he's like, that's not it. He goes, yeah. He goes, it's just the same as if God, changed Coke to Pepsi, found your fucking car keys. I mean, he's like, and that's the thing that I associated. Like when I was a kid going to LDS church, and I would hear somebody, they will have a fast and testimony meeting where people go up there like a typical church in a different way in different Christian churches where they go up and they proselytize.
Like, I haven't seen that in any other one yet.
I've seen it in a few.
Okay.
And where, people come up or they can say something about, their belief in it. And that's where the Mormons will come up there and do this. But I would hear stories like, I couldn't find my pet turtle. And then I prayed and I've had the turtle or something like that. And I don't believe that, you should limit your prayer to anything else. You pray wherever you want. But the thing is I use it for a different reason. And it really helps me where I'm just like, I need you to slow down and I need you to focus on being relaxed and being okay. Because being mad doesn't get you there.
Yeah.
So for me, prayer helps me to get me down to a space. Or if I feel so grateful and I have no one to tell it to, I'll just pray.
Yeah. See, and for me, it was different because after I left Christianity because I did...
you did a bunch of stuff.
Yeah. Well, I left Mormonism because I studied that and nothing actually felt right. I did what they told me to, or it was like, you pray about this after you study it, read the Book of Mormon, pray about it.
Yeah.
And I read the original print of the Book of Mormon and I prayed about it. And I got this overwhelming feeling of gross disgust that I had been lied to and that this was a bunch of shit. And I was like, cool, well, so I did what the church taught me. I did what my entire life had taught me. And the feeling that came out of it was, this is a bunch of shit.
Yeah.
And I was like, cool, so I did what you told me to. And what I've learned through doing what that is we base our beliefs off of a feeling. Yeah. And the feeling I got was, this is a lie. So I can either follow a lie according to my feelings, because that's what we follow, or I can follow something different.
Totally.
And I went to something different because I was like, the idea that God wasn't real or Jesus wasn't real, that never crossed my mind. And then I did LSD and it was like, yeah, no, that concept of God isn't real in my mind. That doesn't make any sense. And so from then on, that idea of praying was like, I don't even when it's been really hard, like, okay, I was worried about my dad dying, or, grandpa died. All these moments where usually I think as a human I might have turned to prayer. I didn't have that, but it was like I didn't feel like I was alone in that because I didn't have someone to pray to. It was more like it's just changed because before it was like, okay, I prayed, when I was really struggling with divorce or something else, like, oh God, help me with this, I'll do this, like, making promises, justification, like all these shit with God, that I'm thinking. And it's like, how many times do we do that? We bargain with God, we try and do these things.
I know, right?
Oh, yeah, okay. And how many times have I prayed for change or this or that, and it, like, that didn't come, and it was like, all right, well, and then the realization of like, well, I could pray for my keys, or these people could pray for this, but really, does he come down and change that? No. Okay, so like, what is this? And if I'm not believing in this concept of this, what in the hell am I talking to?
I totally get that. But
for others, like, there's that connection. It's that peace. They get something from that, and that's fine. They get their value that they need. But
well, I mean, even
for me, that wasn't there.
Going back to, and that's exactly what it is, man. I mean, it's for you, right? I don't believe in a right or wrong when it comes to somebody's faith. It's just the way that they express it.
They feel a connection of that. But
yes, totally.
It's not right or wrong for them. It's just when everyone else is like, this is right or wrong.
No,
this is
totally. What
truth versus,
Which is funny because, Christianity goes into agency. It's not just a Mormon aspect, it's a Christian aspect.
Yeah, but it's like...
But this is the funny thing. You're exactly right. It's agency.
Perceived agency.
No, it's their perceived agency. It's a buzzword for them because here's what they do with it. They did exactly what you said. They bargain with God. And I don't bargain with God. When I pray, I'm just like, hey, I'm trying to understand me. I can't do anything about that. And it helps me to slow down. There's been instances in my life.
Have you always prayed like that?
No, it's gotten better over time. I have more thoughtfulness in it, but I invest into my faith, and my faith isn't a book or somebody else's teachings.
That's what you believe because that's what you feel.
Yeah, for me, if we're going to be completely honest, it wouldn't matter. If I was in like Tibet and there wasn't a Mormon church around, I would probably be more gravitated towards Buddhism, right?
Well,
or like, Taoism.
It's like, okay, so the movie Heretic that just came out recently.
Yeah, totally.
They brought the very introduction brought a very good point up. And it was the two Mormon missionaries out there, and they were talking, and the one turned to the other, and she was like, it's interesting that we believe this book, because if we grew up in any other religion or any other situation, we would have grown up knowing or learning that this book was a fake and a lie. Yet in this one, it's real, but it's the same with every other religion in that. It's like you grow up in this one, and this is the truth because this is what we're taught from a young age. So it's just what we know, so we believe it because it's what is familiar, it's what's around, it's what... And so, any reality is going to be tied to that. Any things that we feel or that will be tied to these things we're taught and learn, and because that's what's around.
And the thing that I find more interesting is that for those who are gravitated to religion or those who are propelled by religion, they just are like, either I was lied to or something like that. But again, that's the hypocrisy that I see a lot in faith with people, is that they're just like, this is true. Yeah. And then when somebody questions it and they question themselves, they get angry. When I know something, if somebody came to me and said, you don't love your wife and you cheat on her all the time, I would laugh. I'd be like, no, I don't.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. And they would be like, yeah, I saw you. And I'm like, clearly you're disturbed. And I'm okay with that. I'm so sorry. Would you like to smoke some of this lovely bud with me? I would be more like that because I know that for me, that's my belief and that's what I hold true. And I've never done anything to be able to do that. So I know my own character. So I can go, look, it's okay if I believe in something and somebody else doesn't. And if somebody else comes to me and says, that's not true and let me tell you why, well, then I feel bad for them because they just want to prove that they're right and I'm wrong. And I don't care.
Most of those, because the only ones who do it are those who have left the religion. And so when they look at it, it's like, it boggled my mind. especially when we had discussions and it was like, wait, you've read these same things and you still believe it. It was a weird way of like, my brain doesn't really comprehend, because with me understanding that, my brain cannot believe that.
Yeah, you're
Yet
more
your
logical.
brain can believe it when it sees those same things.
Well,
so for me, or for someone in that instance, it's really hard to look at it and go, my mind can't comprehend how your mind works in that process.
Oh,
but
totally.
I'm sure it's the same way with vice versa.
Yeah, no.
But it's like,
no.
like I don't fully,
Well, again, it's the idea of absolute fallacy. The absolute fallacy is that you have more information than the other person, but the reality is that their reality is not your reality.
Yeah.
So you can't say that they're wrong. What I have a problem with is when other people, hold on.
It's when they come of like, so I think the issue with people who have left the church is they come in and it's like, most Mormons say this is the true church.
Oh, I know.
Most Mormons.
Yeah,
so for most people on the other side,
But
it's
that's what
going,
they're taught
well, you're
culturally.
exactly.
Yeah.
So then it's going, you're telling me that you're right. And I'm going, well, I've seen the other side of the coin and you're telling me you're right, but yeah, you haven't looked at the other side of the coin.
Well,
So look at both sides before you tell me you're right.
Well, exactly.
And until you've looked at both sides, you can't tell me anything because you haven't even looked at the other side.
There's very few things in this world that are like true.
Yeah, but
Right?
that's the hard part with most religious ones is like, even having discussions with my dad, there's so much of the other side of the coin that I'm like, you can't have a discussion on this because you, one, have never researched it, haven't studied, know absolutely nothing about this side of the coin. So how can you have an educated discussion on something you know nothing about?
But the thing is that on their side, what they're seeing is from their belief. And a lot of it can be
but
where
the belief says don't look at the other side of the coin.
No, I know, and it's funny, right? It's exactly that. It's a contradiction right there in front of them. When you try to challenge it, they go, No, let me tell you why I'm right. Instead of saying, hey, look, I don't understand why it's so important for you to be concerned about my faith and my beliefs.
Well, it's like your politics with your brother.
Oh,
where
yeah.
he was like, you had to explain to him, well, maybe there's these things that you don't understand or didn't know. And he was like,
Totally.
because he didn't research, didn't look. He didn't look at the other side of that coin.
Of course.
And that's it. It's how many of us look at one side of a coin and then try and make a determination, a decision off of this is what's right.
It's like what West
ignoring
had
that.
said, right? If I hold this up, you're
angle.
only seeing one angle.
And your perception of what this thing is different than my perception.
Yeah, you see one, I see two, I see three sides. You see one side, maybe two. So, that's...
Even then, it's like the color, the shape. What I might see is, I see a sun, I see that, you see a box with words on it. Like, there's these different things that it's 100% perception. And, reality. Even like the talking about how much of perception of reality we actually even view in that, and so, but that's the thing I don't like. I like discussions where it's like people can see both sides and look at it, because it's like the hardest part I have with most, I don't like talking religion unless someone else brings it up. If they want to discuss it, most of the time, sure, let's get into that.
Yeah.
But most of the time, because I feel like
A lot of times it's argumentative, though.
yes, but I've
And I
looked
hate
at so
that.
many sides of the coin, of lots of coins. And then I get in these conversations with some, and they've only looked at one coin from one side, and I'm like, I don't appreciate these conversations usually, because they have a hard time.
Do you tell them that?
No,
Why
I don't.
not?
Because I don't want to be an asshole.
No, you're not being an asshole. It's like, it truly is this. Does this dress make me look fat? If you lie to them and they go out and some people are like,
But I'm not
she
lying
looks
to them.
fat.
I'm just not going.
No. I'm not saying you're lying to them, but by not telling them that you have an issue with that, because I get that. Like, my brother just cuts on me and my face, and I was like, hey, I know what you're trying to do, and I don't appreciate it. I don't care that you have an opinion about it, but it's like you're trying to convince me, and dude.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
not
That's
necessary.
why usually my family, we don't discuss religion.
No, they don't.
Because
My family definitely
Thomas is
don't.
religious. His wife is religious.
Yeah.
Stacy's religious. And my parents are religious. But now I've got half of my other siblings who aren't really religious. And so, it's just, we all have varying beliefs, and that's okay. But most of the time, because there is such a drastic difference in that.
It's like your concept of church, dude. Like, you know what the idea of church is? It's
Community.
not confined.
It's community.
It's exactly that. The word church is it's like the word scuttlebutt. Do you know what scuttlebutt means?
No.
It's a rumor.
Okay.
What? Why don't you just say rumor? It was an old word, right? That was used in the military that they got from somebody else. So when somebody would have a scuttlebutt, it was a rumor. Also, it's a water fountain. Yep.
Like a drinking fountain?
Yep, like a drinking fountain, right? You know what the Brightworks are? All the shiny stuff in the bathroom. They call it Brightworks. Not the faucets, the Brightworks. Floor is a deck, ceilings overhead, walls are bulkheads. And whatever the names are, it's just a different lexicon of words. That's all it is. And then when people start getting so like, nope, this is it. I find that there's a lot of fear in that person. When somebody gets defensive about their faith and wants to argue about it, about their right, I typically find those people have a lot of questions about their own faith, and they should explore that.
Yeah.
Because that's why I'm still like that. When you ask that, you're like, hey, I still like everything that I've researched and all that.
But then you've told me it's the community.
It is the community. and it's the experiences I've had in that community.
Yeah. And that's like, that's understandable.
And I feel bad that a lot of people have not had that same experience.
Oh, yeah. Like, I didn't have a good experience. Like, church was fine.
Yeah, you just had it was like a experience. It wasn't fantastic.
I loved Scouts because I did camping, I did outdoors.
But you were in the times of like when Scouts was awesome.
It was huge, yeah.
Yeah.
And I never got diddled, so it wasn't like
good for you.
Fucking awkward. And I know they're like that, but that happens everywhere.
I know.
It's not Scouts. It's like it happens in everything. There's fucking people.
Everyone. Yeah, a bunch of fucking degenerates.
Yeah. So I'm like I loved that aspect of it. I loved going to Young Men's because it was hanging out with friends.
It's a community.
That was about it. But past that, the religious side, I never felt it. I prayed. We did all this stuff. I went to church. I did everything I was supposed to.
Yeah.
And then it was like, I never felt that connection
and
until I left Mormonism.
Yeah, totally. And that's the cool part.
And then I found it in Christianity, and it was like that like overwhelming feeling of like God, spirit, whatever that like people feel. I felt that there, and it was like this overwhelming feeling of like feeling accepted,
Isn't that
feeling
cool?
loved. Yeah, and it was. And
yeah.
I didn't stop going because I didn't like the church or the community.
No, your beliefs changed.
I was like, I loved my pastors. I loved the people there. Truly, it felt like a community.
Yeah, they loved you.
And it was amazing. And I mixed church for them every week. Like, it was fantastic. But then when my belief around God changed, I was like, I can't go to this. And
which is honorable that you say that, because, I mean, I worked with this one guy, because you made me think about this guy, and I apologize if I cut you off, but this guy, Trevor, we worked together, and because he looked very LDS, I thought I had to act very LDS, because it was in an office.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, okay,
Utah?
I can't be
totally understandable
all like that. And the guy who had hired me to this company, he had the appearance that he was very LDS, but he wasn't. And this guy was over there, and I was like, oh, yeah. And I was just trying to bond with him, and he just seemed kind of like
uptight.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I said,
sitting on a stick.
Hey, did you ever hear about this talk? It was a really good one. And I actually liked this talk. And I said, do you ever hear about it? He goes, let me be honest with you. I'm an atheist. And I only go to church to keep my wife happy because I don't want to lose her. And it means a lot to her. He's like, and if that means I get to go to church every week for 3 hours, maybe even do a calling, you know what? They're all nice to me, and I'm nice to them, but I don't believe in it. And I was like, wow. And, I think a lot of people are like that. They just go because...
They do. But I see that in lots of them.
And, exactly. And a lot of...
That's when you see them there, and I'm like... It's all the people with their heads down on the pews, all on their phone. They're there to check the box. They're there not because they really want to be or because they believe it. They're just there. And that's what I noticed so much of church was. But then the Christian church, everyone was there because they wanted to be.
Yeah.
No one was there because it was like, I'm going to feel guilty. My neighbor, where were you? We missed, like, why weren't you at church? None of that ever.
But this is so funny, dude. Like, it's the indoctrination that the earlier church members, like, and I'm saying earlier, like, you really started to see that when more, it became a state, and then more people started to move out here, and there was more diversity. There was people there that weren't LDS. And in order for them to insulate and protect themselves, because they had protected themselves from everybody else, they were in a territory. All of a sudden now they became like hyper evangelical. And that thing that you said, that reminded me of my buddy growing up in Mapleton. And this is Mapleton in the 80s.
Oh, yeah.
So there is nothing out there.
Yeah.
Right? Going to town was Springville. And if anybody lives in Utah and you go down to town in Springfield State.
Oh, Springville?
Maine? Yeah.
Oh, in Maine.
Yeah, like all the teeny little shops and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah, that was going to town. And for him, like anyways, there was a new family that moved into their neighborhood. And this is when his family left the church. There was a new family in there. They were Baptists.
How did that go?
Everybody on Sunday would make it a point to walk in front of their house to show them that this is where we're going. Follow us.
Yep.
And I thought he said, I thought that was the most disingenuous thing. He's like, I was 13. I was active in the church. My dad saw that. His dad was so infuriated. He was a professor at a university here in Utah for many years. And literally after that, they didn't go to church. And then weeks later, he burned all of his garments. He's like, I don't force people to do that. And I don't coerce people into it. He goes, I came into the faith because I wanted to. This is not what I signed up for. And because of that action, they parted. Now, weird thing, he married an LDS woman, a very LDS woman, very active in the church. All of his kids baptized.
Oh, yeah.
Him, he has never been a part of the church.
Well,
ever.
And that's
his thing.
I think that's kind of hard. So, like, my brother's still married to his wife, and they're great. I love his wife dearly.
Yeah, she's great.
She is. She's
so fun.
I'm not going to say this. Yeah. I love her to death. I was like, I'm going to say she's my favorite in-law, because she is, but I'm going to cut that out. But, yeah. Basically, like, so their youngest just got baptized.
Oh, okay.
But that's something that, like, I know he still struggles with. And, like, it's something that I don't, like, my ex-wife got our kids baptized. But that's because she told me, well, it only needs one parent's signature, and I'm getting them baptized anyway. So since we were divorced and she lived in another state, didn't really matter what I wanted or said. And she told me the kids were too scared to talk to me about it, when the kids told me later that she just told them that
this is what we're doing, and
that they probably shouldn't talk to me about it. And yet none of my kids have any desire to be religious.
Well, and you know, again, it's this perception, right? She wanted the perception, like, I'm doing the right thing. But honestly, baptism needs to be looked at, like, you know, if somebody does that, I look at it the same way of getting a piercing. Like, that's your choice. It's your choice. And even if somebody's coercing into it, it's your choice. But you know what? It's not permanent if you don't want it to be. It really isn't.
That's what I'm like, you know, with him, as the kids get older, you know, they can have more conversations. And if they choose that they want to stay or go, that is their choice.
Yeah,
you know?
And we can honor any way they want to.
Yeah.
And that's okay, you know, and that's what I like, dude. That's why I like our relationship so much, and is because, one, I don't yuck your yums, dude. I think it's great how you think and how you are, and I don't think that I am right and that you're wrong. I just know this makes me happy.
Well, and I know that at the end of the day, both of us just really care about people and treat them good. And that's really what I think is important.
There are a lot of people out there that idolize certain people. Like, remember when I was in the Navy and guys were like idolizing Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan?
Oh, yeah. I loved Michael Jordan.
Right.
I used to idolize him.
Right. They were like, oh, they're my heroes. And somebody had asked me, they go, who's your hero? And I'm like, my dad. He immigrated to this country. He didn't swim or climb over a fence. He came here legally. He worked his ass off to learn the language. And everybody gave me shit because I didn't speak Spanish growing up.
Did you want to be like your dad when you were growing up?
No.
Okay.
Not
See,
at all.
I always wanted to be like my dad.
No, it was because we were completely different people. My dad's a quiet guy. I am not a quiet person. Never have been. I don't,
Oh, not like that. I don't think I gave it that much thought on like, I want to be the type of person he is. But it was always like when my dad was a mailman and I was super little, I wanted to be mailman.
Oh, dude, when I was a little kid,
when I was like
yeah.
10, 11, and he worked at RC Willey, I wanted to work at RC Willey.
Yeah.
And then he was a handyman and did his own business. I wanted to do that. And then he was a contractor. And I'm like, oh, I want to do that. It wasn't until I was like a freshman in high school and I was decently good at arguing. And I was good at arguing even with my parents. And my parents were like, oh, yeah, you should be an attorney. And I was like, I might be. Like, I would like that. I would enjoy arguing with people potentially for a living. And then I was like, when I learned that most of it was actually studying, like all of that, not the actual arguing time. And then the more I studied law after, the more I hate law. And would have zero desire to ever be a fucking attorney. But like most of my childhood, I wanted to be like my dad. You know, what he was doing was like, oh, this is who I want to be when I grow up.
See, and your dad must have shown some type of excitement doing it. You know, my dad worked hard at all the jobs that he did, but he never enjoyed his jobs. So I think that's a big reason why, like when you mentioned that when you're like a little kid, like it brought me back to a moment where my dad, it wasn't what he was doing to provide for the family. It was this, like the smell of gasoline and oil.
The nostalgia stuff that like,
he worked on a car until like 2 a.m. with his friend, and I stayed on the couch waiting up for him. I was like 5.
Yeah, see,
and he picked me up.
Yeah.
And he took me to my bed. And I remember his hands.
And the smell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have almost identical to my dad's hands. I mean, his hands are a lot smaller than mine, but in that, dude, he is just like, there was something about that I wanted to be a strong worker. So that's a lot of the reasons why I enjoy mechanic work, because it reminds me that my dad taught me a lot of these things. And then your brother taught me a shitload.
Oh my God, cars. Right? Yeah.
He's so fucking smart. And now that's why I'm able to fix my cars. You know, like when somebody goes, dude, you got to get a new car. And I'm like, no, I don't. Like a $16 part and some fucking elbow grease. Let's get this shit done. Yeah, like fucking fix it. It's not going to fix itself.
Yeah, for real.
Right? I'll watch YouTube. But
I don't know if it was like, my dad taught me hard work from when I was really little.
Yeah.
And it was like, I remember being 5 and weeding not weeding. We'd just built the home. We were putting in the garden that year, and they had rototilled the entire thing. But Grandview had tons of rocks.
Oh yeah, dude.
And he was like, all right.
Horrible.
We had to carry these 5-gallon buckets all the way up and down the garden and pick up rocks, and we had to do the entire garden. Now, the garden was literally the entire length of the whole backyard.
Jesus.
Which was the house next door to my parents' other house.
Okay.
And that was a long-ass garden.
Oh, my gosh.
And it was hours. And I remember being like 5, maybe even 4, because it was probably 4. And my parents going, yeah, no, you don't get dinner unless you do this. And we don't get dinner until it's done. And if you don't do this, you don't eat. But you worked hard, you worked fast. Like we laid our whole backyard with grass. Like I've been working on shit since I could walk.
Yeah.
You know? And so it was like, and my dad has crackhead speed that just is like constant.
Yeah, he's always been like that.
From like 6 a.m. till long past it's dark.
It's like Curtis, dude. Curtis can go forever.
But it's elder energy. Like my sister's the same way. She's a nurse. She works 12-hour shifts. And then after that, outside of that, she calls patients back for patient verification because she's like, well, I have time. I don't know what else I'm doing. She crochets constantly. Blankets, characters for friends. Like she's been doing this for years. So her crocheting is incredible. Like she's always doing.
She's a busybody.
But that's what I'm like, most elders are. When I look at my uncles, they have built, one of my uncles has the largest architecture firm here in Utah. He builds, they do all the temples, they do everything. So when my dad went down to build a home in Springville, and it was on a lot on the hill, they're like, oh, you can't build there. And he's like, Bob told me I could. And they're like, oh, if Bob said it's okay, that's fine. Because Bob does everything for Utah.
Yeah.
And his whole company, like he's the one who, it's his company.
That's pretty cool, dude.
And yet I have like my other uncle, I have two uncles that have been like really high at New Skin for 30 plus years, like sea level and stuff. Like they're crazy, and they've been, or like one of them's the VP of like their warehouse side, and the other one's on the sea level on the front end.
No, that's cool, dude.
Like everyone is just crazy energy, crazy like go, 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 do this, and like, you know, so they always have crazy big dreams. They're always doing tons of shit, and you know.
Yeah, the one thing that I picked up from my dad was I didn't put up with anybody's shit, because my dad worked, but my dad never enjoyed his work ever in his life.
That sucks.
Never. Because he just did the job. I mean, he was disadvantaged in some ways. I mean, he had the grit to be able to put the work in, but education was hard.
He came from a whole different country.
Well, and he just a different idea.
So this whole episode wasn't even supposed to be about this. It was supposed to be a Thanksgiving one.
But this is good. We're just flowing with it.
That's great, because I really wanted to ask about that. So with your dad growing up in Mexico,
yeah,
and you said like that. So Thanksgiving,
yeah,
it's today. They didn't celebrate Thanksgiving.
No, that was an American holiday.
Did you grow up like when you were young? Because your mom was from
Oh no, we did
so.
we did all the holidays. My parents got married on Christmas Eve, and yeah,
that's terrible.
Yeah, they really fucked that up.
Yeah.
But I don't understand that. Getting married on a holiday, that just makes it more complicated, and people are not going to be able to. I mean, if you want them to be there, it's even more fucking difficult. Like, I'm going to inconvenience you.
I got married close to a holiday, but it never falls on the holiday. And
that's leap year.
No, it was like, it was in November, but it was after Thanksgiving.
Oh.
And it just, yeah.
That would have been hard. But the thing, dude, like growing up, the culture that my dad brought was not a lot. My dad is not like, when people would think like Mexican, when I would tell them I'm like Mexican, they're like, well, you're not wearing a cowboy hat, and you don't listen to banda music all the time, and you don't dance around all the time. I'm like, well, that's a very narrow idea of who Mexicans are.
Right?
My dad grew up in Mexico City. This is one of the largest cities in the world. It's so densely populated, and it was super busy. My dad grew up in the streets in the 50s and 60s, in the streets of Mexico, when it was barely becoming modernized, and new things started coming, including organized crime. My dad was in lots of street fights. He'd been in fights on the subway. He beat up an actual like adult when he was a kid, because the guy was starting shit with him and his friends. Like, there's all this crazy stuff that he grew up with, but my dad never really had direction, and it reminds me of me. I mean, at the age of 14, he was kicked out of school because he was flirting with girls and not paying attention. In Mexico at that time, school was a privilege, not a right. The state didn't go, your kid needs to be in school. It's like, either you want to be in school or you're not.
So he started working at 14 instead.
Yep. Came home, and my grandmother said...
Well, that definitely made it harder for education then, because his education stopped at 14 until he...
Yep, until he
tried to relearn later in life.
Well, what had happened is he had met some LDS missionaries that came to his home. What convinced him was that his stepfather, who had smoked for decades, like a chimney, they came to visit, and he believed in what they said. He quit smoking that day, never smoked another time again, ever.
So because he believed, your dad was like, oh, that's a huge, crazy thing.
He didn't like him. He thought that guy was an asshole.
But that's when he converted?
The whole family saw that as a crazy sign, and they all converted.
Yeah, it's like my elder family, I think they converted after the great something grandfather on that side sold the silver mine deed in Park City.
Oh, yeah.
For like 2 pints of whiskey.
Yeah.
And they're like, we could have owned Park City. Like, that's why my grandma's always like, elders are never meant to be rich, because no one's ever made...
Yeah, they always lose
what they've made. Yet I have people, like, they're all millionaires. Almost every single one of them is a millionaire. Like, they all do really fucking well for themselves, but they're just not disgustingly rich. They're just not like, you know.
They're
well to do.
They're well to do.
That's it.
Yeah.
They're well off, and they'll be okay for their life.
Yeah.
And you know, that's fine.
And it's cool because they chose something that they could be passionate about. And that's the one thing I will say, like, I do admire during a certain generation of kids that would go on LDS missions and come back, and they were hardworking. They were dedicated. It's
because you take a kid who just gets out of high school, has most
well,
of the
it used
time,
to not be that. It used to be 19.
Yeah,
Now it's 18. And I think that's somewhat good because all I knew was kids getting pregnant and fucking around a lot right after. Like,
that's all I figure,
bro.
Is they're like, well, if we get them at 18, they're less likely to be getting married, to get pregnant. They're just out of high school, so they're less likely to be already on any other trajectory. So this is the youngest time we can get them.
Yeah.
But they're also adults, so it's,
you don't see the same way. I mean, there's a big reason why that a lot of government organizations would come to places like BYU and recruit. My dad went to BYU for a time, and he was being recruited. He got recruited to the CIA, and he also got recruited to an attachment to the Army for their interrogation division because and they wanted to use him in South America.
Huh.
So they're like, we'll pay for the rest of your college. You'll get this degree, and then we'll bring you in as a translator negotiator.
Yeah.
And if you don't do well there, then we'll put you as an interrogator. And they were like moving to Bogota and stuff like that.
Huh.
Like this is,
mean,
that was crazy shit, dude.
It's even like, so all the door-to-door sales, they all stem from Utah. There's so many like missionaries that
MLMs.
Come, yeah. Because it's like,
Utah.
Hey, you guys are great at this. You're great at going and pulling someone into either sales. Because it's like, not anymore. But
It's
like
totally different
back
now.
in the day. Now it's like, you're going to learn how to use social media, post a TikTok or some shit, and then go respond to someone who wants you to come to their house.
Yeah,
you don't really learn any hard skills. You're not breaking out of your shell in your comfort zone. It's like, okay, like whoop-de-doo.
It's like that guy I told you about, Taylor, that I worked with in sales. Like he had this missionary leader that would tell him, like, he was doing like a prep course. I guess, I don't know. I didn't go on one of those.
I didn't either.
I served in the military. I enjoyed that, and
I started having sex and then got married, so I didn't even worry.
No, I was doing that too, but I didn't get married. I was dodging babies and STDs like Neo in the Matrix.
Yeah.
But dude, it's just,
I wouldn't trade my kids for anything.
No. Of course not,
keep
dude.
Them, but...
No, I have 5 of them.
Oh no,
that I know of.
You're still married. That's
but it's dude, everything, it like all comes full circle. And that's what I love about like the differences that we have. I see that same thing for other people. There was one of our fans, the guy who sent us out
the books.
Wesley.
Yeah.
Love you,
Thank you, sir.
He posted something pretty cool. He's like, when I went around, he's in New Jersey.
Okay.
So it's primarily a blue state.
Yeah.
He said, I went around to those I know who voted for Trump, and I just said, hey, look, even though we have differences, we have to still be friends. We don't need to let this divide us.
Yeah. And
the comments that were in there were like, fuck that, no way, fuck that, they're the enemy. And I was just like, wow.
See, and that's what I hate about
all those people needed to get high.
Yeah.
Smoke some weed.
It's been since the Hillary Trump campaign. I feel like that there's been this
such
polarized
divide.
Hatred. Yeah, of like everyone. I'm like,
but this has happened before in U.S. history, so
probably.
Yeah.
Well, history repeats itself, so it wouldn't be surprised. It's just the fact that when it's in this divide, looking at everyone else of like, hey, how many friendships truly dissolve over some stupid political support of like, well, I voted this because everything in my life led me to choose this decision, just the same way as everything in your life led you to choose that decision.
Yeah.
Like, I can't understand your decisions fully because I've never lived every moment of your life just the same as you never lived every moment of mine.
Right.
And it would be ludicrous to think that we would be able to fully understand that. We can look at and go, hey, I can try and understand this the best I can and see them as a human and go, at the end of the day, like, are you hurting me? Am I hurting you?
Yeah.
Are you hurting someone I love? Like physically, are you hurting someone I love?
No.
But it was like the discussion at first, you were saying, where someone was a little intoxicated and was like, fuck you, and getting frustrated.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait a second, like, what's going on? And it's literally over like a political decision. You're like, wait, well, and it was over like something that they're frustrated in, not even realizing something of like, you might be in that same boat and they might not even realize that.
And that was the thing. I think what was so, and I'm glad that I didn't drink at that time. I was like, and I told you, I was like, I told you about it and you're like, oh dude, that sucks. And I'm like, no. What was cool about it is that it reaffirmed me is that I don't ever want to drink again, because I watched somebody who is normally just a sweet person, and maybe they secretly think I'm a fucker. I don't care. They never say it to my face.
But they're kind usually.
They're cordial.
Yeah, you don't have to deal with that.
But because of what they perceived, and they were drunk, they decided to be able to attack me out of nowhere. And I was like, whoa. And it didn't register. Like, it's like getting punched in the face by somebody that and you're like, wait a minute, what's going on? Yeah. And I was like, and then she said it again.
It's the assumptions. It's when we make assumptions and, oh, well, I thought you were, and it's
yeah, exactly.
Well, but maybe that's not how it was. And instead of like assuming it, allow them to show up just how they are and see what that is, instead of going
allow
like
people to have different perspective.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all it was. When somebody went to the ballot box, it was a perspective that they have. They said, this is my belief. And if they didn't, and they just said, you know what? I'm just going to vote for whoever the people that I'm around. Let that one. Cool. That was still their choice.
Yeah.
So what? Who cares? And
I think it was a very hard I know it was a very hard election for a lot of people.
It was this.
And I've seen that. Like,
this goes the same with like when Reagan came in. It was almost the exact.
Similar?
It was very similar because
who is he?
Carter.
Okay.
So he was Carter and a couple of the guys, but Carter had done something very similar to what had happened during Biden, except it was far worse.
Fell asleep and did nothing.
Gas prices were so incredibly high. You remember these stories?
Oh, yeah.
You had to wait in line. Your grandparents.
Yeah, I didn't even, my grandma was telling me about it. And she was like, we had to go get gas rations. We had to go get food rations.
Yep.
And you would go pick them up and wait in line to get gas. And my grandpa had traded some other, I don't know what it was, products that they had or something for some other gas rations. They took a trip to California as a family.
Yeah.
But they had to like trade and bargain to do that. And I was like, what in the hell is this time?
That was their COVID time.
Yeah.
What did we have? Toilet paper?
Yeah. Hand sanitizer. Like $5 a roll or something. Like,
oh my God. Dude, that was the funniest fucking
People
shit.
hoarding it and selling it on Facebook Marketplace. It was like everywhere was bought out. And then they're like, oh, look, my entire garage is stockpiled. Do you want a $50 roll of toilet paper?
Oh, dude, remember masks?
Oh
N95 masks?
Yeah.
And then now knowing everything they know, they're all jokes. Jokes. Just jokes, people. It's just, and it was almost identical. But what he had done is he had completely gutted the military. He had turned us into a very weak position. Unfortunately,
Can we say a flaccid position?
I would say very limp, leaning to the left, in a cold state.
Yeah, so
a
a little shriveled
up.
Yeah.
One hanging lower than the other, the ball, right? But
as one does.
As one does. You know which one in the comments, which one it is, right or left. But, you get... But, dude...
Oh, my God.
There was this thing, man. This thing happened. It's very similar to this, man. It's very similar to this. In Iran, there were, this time, hijackings were like all the craze, right? There was K-pop, there was Backstreet Boys,
and hijackings.
And then there was hijackings in the late 70s.
Airplane hijackings.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So they would take them, and then they would land. And these are the things like Dave Chappelle used to joke around about it, because that's what they used to do. They'd be like, we're going to tell you right now, we want $500,000 or we'll kill people, right? Yeah. Something like that, right? And then Dave Chappelle says, and the guy was Asian, and I didn't understand why he was talking like that. It's just like, it's just funny shit, right? But during this time, there was a lot of hostages being taken, and there was a bunch of Jewish American hostages taken, and they were in Lebanon, right? I think it was Lebanon or Iran. I can't be 100% sure. So, this was around the first time that Delta Force, the Special Forces team that was completely blacklisted. Like, you didn't know it existed. If you got invited to it, it was just a different type of army. I've read a lot of stuff about this, especially when I was younger, when the books weren't as sanitized as they are now. And what they did is they sent this they've never deployed these type of people, but they were primarily built for hostage rescue. They were modeled after the British SAS, and that's one of their specialties was hostage rescue. And that's who saved those. They got rid of these terrorists in Berlin during the games. I think it was in the 80s or something like that. The SAS went in and killed the guys. Like, they just went through. They're fucking, they're wow. Anyways, so that all happens. They send Delta Force out there. Guess what happens? Massive issues. Ill-prepared. You sent the most highly trained, up to this point, specialists in hostage rescue. Not special forces at this time, but in hostage rescue. Both helicopters, they weren't ready for that. And they ended up colliding and crashing. A bunch of Delta guys died in the fire. A book that was written was one of the guys who was in that crash who survived and lived out a really good, cool career. But the thing that happened was there was all of that. And then the plane crashed. And then they had nothing. So they also didn't get the hostages, but they also
died.
Yeah, they failed. It looked ridiculous. And so the U.S. was seen as extremely weak. Little proxy wars start popping up everywhere. Ronald Reagan starts going in there. He takes the pulpit. For every hostage you kill is a city I will bomb. He gets into office, hostage is released.
Yeah.
Trump takes, he is president-elect. Hamas, we'll stop. We'll like to go into peace talks now. China, oh, we're cool. We respect America. Putin, hey, we're willing to go to peace talks right now. And the reason why is because he didn't push before. They're worried he will now because he's crazy. Like most presidents. The last president, instead of trying to carry on, because that's all Trump had to do. He had to carry on from what Obama had to carry on from what the Bush administration started, right?
Wasn't that what most of them are just continuing previous?
And sometimes they just can't get out. And that was the big issue. They couldn't get out of Afghanistan without massive casualties. It turned into Vietnam.
That's what we knew, is leaving Afghanistan would be...
It needs to be a slow process.
It would have to be a trickle.
And they did exactly what happened to Saigon in that one. Dude, you watch the videos in Saigon. Afghanistan was horrible in knowing what that one, but when you see the video footage of what they had during Vietnam, they were pushing Huey helicopters off of aircraft carriers because there were people all over the deck, all inside the ship, just to save all these South Vietnamese, because the North Vietnamese were kicking ass and they were coming.
Oh, wow.
And you could see, like, when they were attacking I think it's Hanoi, when they were attacking it, dude, like, reporters were recording it. And it's fucking insane. They were getting on helicopters to, right, because they were coming in, killing everybody. If you helped out the U.S., you're dead.
Huh.
It's the same thing that the Taliban did. It's the same thing that ISIS did. As soon as we left, if you worked with the U.S. during their coalition, you're fucking dead. Your family, fucking dead.
Oh, yeah.
And it's so sad. It just keeps repeating. But this shit didn't happen so long ago. And it's almost identical. It's hilarious. And that's the thing that I don't understand, is that the differences that we see around the world with so much war, so much hate. And I hate saying it, dude. Just smoke more weed and figure your shit out.
I honestly, like, we talk about it all the time, but, you know, it's like, it's Thanksgiving. And maybe you don't have a lot of commonalities with some people at your family, or maybe you just butt heads and don't get along, and Thanksgiving isn't the best time. Or maybe Thanksgiving you fucking hate because you're alone. And honestly, that can be really hard too.
Yeah, that's horrible.
And like, you know, if you are, get some super boof, smoke some of that, you will have a fantastic Thanksgiving, and listen to some Cannabis School, and we'll hang out with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
But like, it's that hatred that, like you said, if you could go and smoke a bowl, just listen to these other things. I I don't think we would have so much hatred. We would have so much war. We would have so much like us and them, because it's like
It's
you can
not enough
have different
time
beliefs.
to care about that,
No,
man.
it's the realization of like, is that what's important?
Do you realize that now, with all the things that we have in our life and how busy we are, it almost seems like time is going away faster. But when you're in nature and you're like camping for like 5
Stops,
days,
slows down again.
it doesn't even exist anymore.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And I wish I need to go camping more often, because I didn't go at all this year.
Do we need to go
I
this
didn't
next
go
summer?
last year. Yeah, 100%. But I'm like, you're right. Time it stops, it slows back down. It's like you can disconnect from all the rush of like,
Dude, even if you're
Shit.
with people out there that you may not get along with all the time, when you're camping, you tolerate them, and then eventually you'll depend upon them. And that's the thing. That's why my family and I, we don't do campers. We don't do any of that shit. We camp on the ground. Yeah, we'll have a blow-up mattress because, that's going to be the creep.
yeah.
Yeah, but we don't have cell service.
Oh, I love no cell service. That is my
I just keep
favorite camping now.
I love Spotify for the reason that I will save my playlist
oh, yeah.
to my phone, and that's what I'll listen to when I go for walks.
Oh, yeah.
That's when I do
it.
mushrooms probably the entire time. I
I
mean,
use a lot of cannabis camping.
oh,
Because
man,
I'm in nature.
tons.
But it's like a lot of our audience, like a lot of you guys do the same thing, where you use cannabis and like to be in nature.
Oh, yeah.
There's just something about connecting and reconnecting or disconnecting.
And that's what I'm thinking that Thanksgiving should be, is just fucking let that shit go and just be there. And if you don't have anybody, get a community of you people together and go meet up at a Village Inn. Village Inn is cool for that. You want to go to Denny's? I mean, that's your choice. But Village
I'm sure
Inn,
there's something.
yeah,
in your
find
area.
something
Yeah.
there, right? A Shoney's or something like that. Go there with a group of people, smoke a
Friendsgiving.
bowl out in the parking lot,
Or
and
a
then
few.
go in and enjoy each other's company, because that's ultimately what's in need. I love you, Brandon.
Love you too, bro.
And this has been a crazy, fucked up year. But you know what? I'm glad that we spent it together, and I'm glad that everybody else got to spend this with us. It's been a cool evolution. Last Thanksgiving, it was a little post, and now we're giving you a full show. So I hope you're baked while you're baking, and I hope you roast while you're roasting.
Yeah. And let me ask you, how are you doing your turkey this year?
I do it traditional, man. I just put it in the oven for a long, slow roast. I just do like a basic poultry blend of thyme and sage, and then I take a shitload of butter and garlic powder and a lemon inside, a couple lemons inside, and
Okay.
and then a bunch of fucking stuffing that my mother-in-law makes.
Mm-hmm.
She makes the best stuffing. She makes the best stuffing, probably the best stuffing I've ever had in the world. But she's so good at that, and it's awesome. It is a time where this year's going to suck because of my diet. I
Can you
can't.
not do?
I can't do a bunch of fucking sweets. I'm making a sugar-free pumpkin cheesecake for myself. You're like,
There you go.
"Bleh, bleh."
Double throw up.
But
Puke everywhere.
the reason why is just I know that now I have to be more of a keto type of there. If I had the money, I would really try to be a carnivore diet. Just because I did 1 week where I had like a bunch of frozen meat and I ate it every day. That, avocados, eggs, and protein shakes. I didn't have any carbs one day, and I felt fucking fantastic. I felt great. I had lots of energy, no pain. I felt great.
That's wild.
Yeah,
Huh.
just a strict carnivore diet. But you know what? I have to have variety. I was going to tell you this, and this is in passing, and this is a warning for you guys out there. If you ever try almond flour, don't make waffles. I made waffles this morning. I made a pumpkin protein waffle
Okay.
with almond flour. You know what it tasted like?
Mm-mm.
It tasted like I had a mouthful of almonds, and it's not the hard almonds. It's just that part where you're like, I could keep chewing this, or I could swallow it.
It's that gritty powder.
Yes.
Yeah, because that's what almond flour is just ground up almonds.
Oh, dude, it was so gross. It felt like Play-Doh being heated up and
Oh, man.
pressed. I was like, Nope. So what flour is out there, guys? What's the best flour to cook with that's close to actual ground wheat? I can't do that.
So the one
anymore.
that we've used that I've really liked for Emily's
is it coconut?
No, it's Bob's Mill or something. It's like it's a gluten-free one, and it's Bob's, and it's mixed usually in like a pre-mixed mix of like xanthan gum and all this stuff in there to make their flour mix.
And it's pretty good.
It's fantastic. I've used it for waffles for her, for pancakes, for like...
No way.
Oh, yeah. It's way better than
Done.
any other, at least so far that I have found.
Dude,
and then King
almond.
Arthur's, if you're ever looking at like brownie mixes or stuff, that's been the best brand as far as flavor, texture, like everything. King Arthur's. At least that we've found so far.
Or a Prince Albert.
Oh, my God. Speaking of that, yesterday we were sitting in the car and... Emily had taken out all of her earrings because she got surgery, and she had to take out all her rings, and she was like, "Oh, are they all out?" And I was like, "Yeah, they look like they're all out." I was like, "Did you get your nipple rings? Did you get, because I'm just fucking with her."
Were you saying that in front of the nurse?
No, we were in the car still.
Oh, that would be funny.
And I was like, did you get your, I was like, what's the female version of a Prince Albert? And I was like,
oh, it's a clip pierce.
Princess Albert? And so we Googled it, and it's a Princess Albertina.
Albertina.
I was like,
oh
what
my
the hell? She was like, oh, you were really close. Because I was like, Princess Albert? But,
dude.
I knew someone who had got that done. I'm like, that just sounds insanely painful.
Okay, so here's who we need to bring on to our as a guest. You know Gentry.
Why does that sound familiar?
My tattoo artist.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So the reason why is, dude, the funniest fucking stories are the piercings and how gross.
Oh, probably.
Like some chick coming over here and going, I need you to pierce this. And that girl doesn't even know what soap is. Could you imagine you're doing this and maybe it's a bunch of folds?
No.
And you're doing that.
Thank God they have gloves.
I know, but even then, dude, you got to get close enough. You can't just do this. Okay. Back up and stab.
Yeah.
But I was just like, he told me some stories, dude, that both made me laugh and shiver in fear.
Yeah, I'm cringing just thinking about it, and you haven't even told me.
But the tattoo stories are funny too. Like there was one chick, we'll have to talk about, she got this thing that's supposed to look like a feather.
On her
and she
face?
got it. Yeah. It was supposed to come out of her hair, and it
Okay.
looks like a feather, like almost like a Native American type theme thing.
Yeah.
Like we don't even know if Native Americans did that. But anyways, she had this, and it was supposed to look like a feather, and she showed us the picture.
Of what it looks like or what it should?
What it's supposed to look like.
Yeah. Okay.
And then she went to one of the other artists in there, and Gentry ran the place at the time. And the girl comes over, she goes, this doesn't look right. And it looked like a pine tree sticking out upside down. It was so bad. And Gentry's like, come in here. And he's like,
oh, Jesus.
can you wait for a half hour to the other person? They're like, yeah. And they were getting like a half sleeve.
Oh, wow.
They were starting out like
Yeah.
the outline and shit. And he's just like, oh, fuck. So
Had to fix that big mess.
dude, he's got so many funny stories, and so many tattoo artists are, hey, if you're a tattoo artist and you've got some crazy ass stories and you like to partake, let us know. Gentry doesn't partake.
What?
No, he did it. He did way too much when he was younger. Got super, super paranoid. It has freaked him out ever since. He gets anxiety even thinking about it.
Interesting.
I know. I told him, dude, you need to just smoke a little bit and see where it goes.
Yeah. Or take a microdose edible or
Right. Or just
something.
Take some psilocybin. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know.
But yeah.
Hey, guys. Love you guys. Thanks so much for sticking around.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. Catch you guys.
Yeah, tip your waiter.
Tip your waiter. Catch you next week.
And make sure you clean.
Yeah. Wash your balls.